7 reasons why people leave you after 70 and how to keep them close. Even your family senior advice. Have you ever noticed that as you grow older, some people start to pull away? Maybe a close friend doesn't call as often. Family visits become less frequent, or you suddenly realize you're no longer invited to the same social gatherings. It's a quiet shift, and it can be deeply painful, like the world is moving on without you. But here's the truth. This doesn't just happen out of nowhere. In many cases, there are very real reasons behind it. And the good news is you have more control than you might think. In today's video, we're going to uncover 7 powerful reasons why people often drift away from you after 70. These aren't just random life changes. They're subtle behaviors, mindsets, and patterns that can unintentionally push others away. Once you understand these reasons, you'll be able to make small but powerful shifts that can strengthen your relationships, rebuild lost connections, and ensure the people you care about most stay close, year after year. Stick with me until the end, because one of the final reasons might genuinely surprise you, and it could be the key to feeling truly seen and valued again. If you've ever felt like people are slowly slipping away from your life, this might just change everything. Let's begin with the first reason. You're not nurturing your relationships. There's a quiet moment that happens in many households across America, usually in the early afternoon. The house is still, the phone hasn't rung, and someone, perhaps just like you, sits by the window and wonders, why doesn't anyone check in anymore? It's a feeling that sneaks in slowly, the sense that people are drifting away. And over time, that silence can start to feel like rejection. But before we assume the worst, let's look deeper. Because often, it's not that your family or friends have stopped caring. It's that something subtle has changed on your side too. You see, one of the most common reasons people begin to drift away after 70 isn't cruelty or neglect. It's inaction. It's when we stop nurturing the very relationships that once lit up our lives. We begin waiting for others to call instead of picking up the phone ourselves. We stop sending birthday wishes, stop reaching out just because, and gradually, unintentionally, we let the warmth fade. And though we may not mean to, the message others receive is simple. They no longer matter to us like they once did. In a quiet home just outside Chicago, a woman named Linda sits by her window every Sunday. Not because she's watching the street, but because she's waiting for a phone call that never comes, for someone to remember she's still here. Linda is 73, a retired teacher who once hosted every holiday dinner. Her voice used to fill kitchens with laughter, but lately it's been silent. When I asked if she had reached out to her children, maybe a message, a call, a note, she looked down and whispered, "I don't want to be a bother." What Linda didn't realize, and what many of us don't, is that relationships, just like our gardens or our health, need regular tending. When we don't water them, they dry up. Not because they weren't important, but because they were neglected. And the consequences go far beyond loneliness. A landmark study from Harvard, conducted over 75 years, found that the single strongest predictor of happiness and health in later life isn't money or even physical fitness. It's the strength of your close relationships. Not just whether people are around, but whether you feel truly connected to them, and connection takes effort. So how do we shift? How do we avoid becoming the person others slowly forget? The answer lies in small, intentional acts. Don't wait for someone else to reach out. Be the one who sends the first message. A short call to say, "I saw something today that reminded me of you," can mean more than a gift. Text your grandchild, even if it's just an emoji and a heart. Leave a voice message for your sister saying, "I miss your laugh." These don't take hours, but they echo in people's hearts long after. And if the voice in your head says they're busy or they won't care, remember this: silence is often misunderstood. People don't always know you're thinking of them unless you show them. And when you do, you make it easier for them to come closer again. So let me ask you, who could you reconnect with today? Maybe it's a cousin you haven't spoken to in months, a friend from church, your daughter-in-law. If someone came to mind just now, don't let that name drift away. Reach out. Even a small message can open a big door. If this part of the story resonates with you, if you felt that ache of missing someone but weren't sure how to fix it, go ahead and like this video. Not for the algorithm, but to remind yourself that your relationships still matter. They're worth saving. And while you're here, why not share this with someone you care about? A gentle nudge, that connection goes both ways. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider joining our community here at WiseElders. We're building a space where age doesn't mean isolation, but wisdom, presence, and love. Now let's keep going. Because the next reason people begin to disappear from your life is one many of us carry unknowingly, and it's far more common than we think. Reason number 2, you've become too negative or complain too often. Let's be honest, aging isn't always easy. The aches, the doctor visits, the bills, the feeling that the world is changing faster than we can keep up. It's completely understandable that sometimes we feel frustrated, disappointed, or even left behind. But here's something many people don't realize. When negativity becomes our daily language, it quietly starts to push others away. And not because people don't care, but because being around constant complaining, especially when it feels one-sided, can be emotionally exhausting. There's a certain kind of silence that settles in after a visit with someone who only talks about what's wrong. That's how Emily began to feel during her Sunday drives to visit her father, Carl, a 76-year-old retired engineer in Colorado. The visits had once been cherished, but now each one seemed to end with a sigh. Dad only ever talks about his pain or how the world's falling apart, she told her husband. I love him, but I leave feeling heavier than when I came. Now, Carl doesn't mean harm. He loves his family deeply. But somewhere along the way, his conversation shifted. Instead of asking about his grandkids' lives or listening to what's happening in Emily's world, the visits became monologues about how much everything has gone wrong, and Carl is not alone. As we age, we often face real challenges, and talking about them is valid. But when every conversation centers around complaints, comparisons to the past, or cynicism about the present, people begin to associate us with discomfort. They might not even realize it, but they start calling less, visiting less, pulling away. The science backs this up. Research from the Mayo Clinic shows that persistent negativity can increase cortisol levels in the body, worsening memory, weakening immunity, and even accelerating aging. And socially, people are drawn to those who make them feel light, not heavy, curious, not judged, encouraged, not criticized. But here's the hopeful part. This is not about pretending life is perfect. It's about balance. You can absolutely share your struggles, but mix them with genuine questions about others. You can reflect on the past, but pair it with interest in the present. You can express pain, but don't let it define your voice. If you want to stay connected with the people you love, focus on how your presence makes them feel. Ask your granddaughter about her new school project, compliment your neighbor's garden, share a funny memory, not just a medical update. Let them leave your presence feeling seen, heard, and maybe even smiling. You don't need to become a different person. You just need to remember the version of yourself that once brought warmth and laughter into a room, and bring that person back into the conversation. So, let me ask you this. When was the last time you made someone laugh? When was the last time you asked about someone else's life without adding, back in my day, at the end? If any of this feels familiar, that's okay. It means you're aware, and awareness is the first step toward change. If you believe that kindness, gratitude, and curiosity are still part of who you are, click the like button now. Not just for this video, but as a small promise to yourself to speak more light into the world. And if you're still with us, take a second to share this video with someone who might need the reminder. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a sibling, or maybe it's your past self. Leave a comment below and tell me, what's something you're grateful for this week? Let's fill this space with stories that lift, not just vent. Now take a breath and let's move forward, because the next reason people drift away, it has less to do with your words and more to do with what you've stopped doing altogether. Reason number 3, you've become too dependent on others. Aging comes with changes. That's not a secret. Our bodies slow down, routines shift, and sometimes the smallest tasks, like opening a jar or remembering which pill to take, suddenly become harder than they used to be. And asking for help is part of life. But here's where things get tricky. When dependence stops being occasional and starts becoming constant, relationships can begin to quietly fray. And it's not just about needing physical help. It's emotional too. When the balance of give and take tips too far in one direction, when we lean on others for everything without offering anything in return, it can lead to a silent kind of fatigue, the kind that builds slowly but inevitably leads people to pull back. Let me tell you about Raymond. He's 78, a former truck driver living in rural Indiana. Since his wife passed, his daughter Megan has been his anchor. She drives him to doctor's appointments, manages his bills, picks up his groceries, and even cleans his house. But lately, Megan's been missing visits. Calls go unanswered, and Raymond understandably feels hurt. But when I spoke to Megan, her voice cracked. I love my dad, she said, but I feel like I'm his employee, not his daughter. He never says thank you. He never asks how I'm doing. And even when I try to talk about my life, he just circles back to his needs. That's the emotional weight of one-sided care, not just for Megan, but for so many adult children, spouses, neighbors, and friends who silently carry the burdens of those they love. To be clear, needing help doesn't make you a burden. Everyone needs support at some point, but when help becomes expected rather than appreciated, when we stop doing what we can do for ourselves, people start to feel taken for granted, and no one thrives in a relationship that feels like a chore. Studies from the National Institute on Aging have shown that seniors who retain some form of daily independence, even something as simple as making their own breakfast or walking to the mailbox, report higher levels of self-worth and experience stronger relationships with their caregivers. Why? Because independence builds dignity, and dignity creates mutual respect. So what does this mean for you? It means that even if you can't do everything, you can do something. You can fold your laundry. You can write your own grocery list. You can ask your son how he's doing before asking for a ride. And you can say, with sincerity, "Thank you. I know this isn't easy for you either." You'd be surprised how far those words can go. Appreciation breathes new life into tired relationships. It reminds others that you see them, not just as helpers, but as human beings with their own lives, their own struggles. Here's a question for you. Is there someone you've been leaning on lately, maybe more than you realized? Could today be the day you call them, not to ask for anything, but to ask how they are? And if this part of the story hit close to home, don't worry. Awareness isn't guilt. It's a gift. It means you're ready to shift the dynamic and bring more balance back into your relationships. Now take a breath. We're just getting started, because the next reason people start slipping away isn't something we do to them. It's what we stop doing for ourselves. Reason number 4, you've stopped growing and lost your curiosity for life. There's a quiet moment that happens more often than we like to admit. When the television becomes the main companion, the daily schedule shrinks to pills and sleep, and the phrase, "I've seen it all," becomes a silent mantra. It starts subtly. You stop learning new things. You avoid asking questions. You shrug off unfamiliar ideas with a gentle wave. That's for the young folks. But here's the thing. When curiosity fades, connection follows. People, especially your children, your grandchildren, your neighbors, are drawn to those who are still evolving, who ask, "What's that new app you're using?" instead of saying, "I don't understand any of that tech stuff." Who want to hear about a new band, a new book, a new way of seeing the world, not to impress, but to engage. When you stop exploring the world, people slowly stop exploring it with you. Let me tell you about Judith. She's 79, living in a retirement community in Tampa, Florida. Once a vibrant piano teacher, now she spends her days mostly in silence. Her grandson Max, 18, used to visit often. But one day, Judith told him, "Music today is just noise. I can't listen to that junk you like." It wasn't cruel. It wasn't meant to hurt, but Max never brought up music again. He started visiting less, and slowly, that bond, once built on shared joy, started to dissolve. That's what happens when we stop being open, when we start rejecting the present in favor of the past. Conversations shrink. Energy dies down. People feel judged or irrelevant. And without realizing it, we become the kind of person others avoid. Not because of age, but because of closed doors. And yet, growth is not reserved for the young. A study from the University of California, Berkeley, found that older adults who engage in learning, whether through reading, puzzles, classes, or hobbies, show better cognitive function, reduced rates of depression, and greater life satisfaction. Learning literally rewires the aging brain to stay sharp, vibrant, and socially active. So how do we stay curious? Not by trying to become someone we're not, but by asking better questions. Instead of saying, "What is TikTok?" Try. "Show me how it works." Instead of rolling your eyes at a new recipe, try it with your daughter. Read a book outside your comfort zone. Try painting. Try Zoom. Try something that makes you feel a little bit foolish, and watch how your relationships come alive again. Curiosity keeps you connected, not just to others, but to yourself. You don't need to reinvent your identity, but you do need to let your mind stretch. Just like your body, it gets stiff when left unused. So here's my challenge to you. What's one new thing you could learn this week? One conversation you could have where you ask more than you tell? One moment where you let your curiosity lead instead of your judgment? If you're still watching this, chances are you are curious, and that means you're already halfway there. If this part of the video resonates with you, take a second to like it. It lets us know you're here not just to watch, but to grow. And while you're at it, why not comment below and share? What's something new you'd like to try this year? Better yet, share this with a friend who might need a gentle nudge to reawaken that spark of wonder. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where learning never retires and wisdom keeps getting deeper. Let's keep moving forward, because the next reason people pull away might have more to do with the changing world around us than we'd like to admit. Reason number 5. You refuse to adapt, and people feel left behind. Let's be honest with each other. Change is hard. It's uncomfortable, unfamiliar, and at times downright frustrating. And as we grow older, we often find comfort in what we already know. The music we used to dance to, the recipes we've cooked 100 times, the letters we once mailed, and the world we once recognized. But here's a difficult truth. The world doesn't pause for our comfort. It keeps moving. And when we choose to stop moving with it, even just a little, we begin to lose touch with the people who still are. You may not realize it, but refusing to adapt, even in small ways, can send a powerful unintended message to those around you. I don't want to understand you. Take Robert, for example. He's 81 and lives in Des Moines, Iowa. A proud Korean War veteran, Robert has lived a full life and has stories worth telling. But when his teenage grandson tried to show him how to use FaceTime to stay in touch, Robert scoffed. "What do I need that nonsense for? In my day, we picked up the phone or showed up in person." That one comment, so small, so casual, made his grandson go silent. After that, the calls became texts. The visits became rare, not out of disrespect, but because the connection no longer felt like a two-way street. You see, when we refuse to adapt, what we're really doing is refusing to meet people where they are. We may think we're just being ourselves, but to others, it can feel like rejection, like a wall, like they have to leave part of themselves outside just to be near us. And this isn't just about technology, it's about mindset. It's about saying yes to the present instead of always clinging to the past. It's about being curious instead of critical. It's about saying, "Show me how that works," instead of, "I don't get it and I don't want to." According to a study by the Pew Research Center, older adults who actively embrace new tools like video calling, online learning, even social media, experience less loneliness and have stronger family ties than those who resist them. Why? Because adaptation is a form of love. It says, "I want to be part of your world too." So how do we begin to adapt without losing ourselves? We start small. Ask your grandson to show you how to text a photo. Try that new Thai restaurant your daughter loves. Watch a Netflix documentary your neighbor recommended. Don't worry if you feel awkward. That's part of the fun. Growth is messy. It's also magnetic. You don't have to become someone you're not. You just have to stay open to the fact that the people you love may live in a different world than the one you grew up in. And if you want to keep them close, you need to visit their world from time to time. So here's a gentle question. When was the last time you said yes to something new? Even if it scared you a little? If your answer is, "It's been a while," that's okay. The invitation is still open. The world is still waiting, and your relationships are too. If this part of the video feels like it's speaking directly to you, click the like button now. It lets us know you're not giving up on connection. Share this with someone you want to stay connected to, even across the generational divide, and tell us in the comments, what's one new thing you're willing to try this week? Let's keep going. Because the next reason people may quietly disappear from your life has nothing to do with technology and everything to do with the heart. Reason number 7, you struggle to apologize, and it's costing you connection. Some words are small, but heavy. "I'm sorry." 3 syllables. And yet they carry the power to break walls, mend bonds, and reopen hearts. But for many of us, especially those who've lived long, proud lives, those words can be the hardest to say. It's not always because of pride. Sometimes it's habit. Sometimes it's fear. And sometimes it's because we were raised in a time when being strong meant never admitting you were wrong. But here's the truth. The inability to apologize is one of the fastest ways to lose the people we love. Let me tell you about Harold. He's 84, a former construction foreman from Kansas City, tough as nails, deeply respected in his community, but when his son stopped coming around as often, Harold brushed it off. He's probably busy. What Harold didn't know was this. 2 years ago, in a moment of frustration, he'd snapped at his son for a parenting decision. Harsh words were said, and they were never addressed. His son waited for his father to say, "I didn't mean to hurt you," but it never came. Not because Harold didn't care, but because saying "I was wrong" felt too vulnerable. And so, silence grew, not from hatred, but from hurt. You see, when we never acknowledge our mistakes, big or small, people begin to feel invisible, like their pain doesn't matter, like peace will only come if they pretend it never happened. But pretending is not healing, and pride is not love. According to researchers at the University of California, Davis, authentic apologies are one of the strongest predictors of reconciliation in strained relationships, especially between generations. And even late in life apologies have been shown to lower blood pressure and stress markers in both the giver and the receiver. Apologizing isn't weakness, it's wisdom. So what does this mean for you? It means that no matter how many years have passed, it's never too late to say, I was wrong. Even if you didn't mean to hurt someone. Even if you barely remember the argument. Even if the relationship has been quiet for months or years, a simple sentence, I'm sorry I hurt you. I was trying my best, but I know I didn't handle it well. Tash, tash. That alone can melt years of distance. You don't have to dig up every detail. You don't have to lose your dignity. But you do have to show that the people in your life matter more than your ego. So let me gently ask you, is there someone you owe an apology to? Not because you were the only one at fault, but because you care enough to heal. If someone came to mind, don't ignore it. Write a letter, make a call, or even just say the words the next time you see them. And if you've ever been on the other side, hoping someone would apologize to you, you know how powerful that moment can be. Tap like if you believe in second chances. Share this video with someone who still holds your heart and comment below, what's one thing you've forgiven or are ready to say, I'm sorry for? Because the most beautiful relationships, they don't come from being perfect. They come from being willing to repair what matters. So let's take a moment and breathe. We've talked about 7 powerful reasons why people might begin to drift away after 70. Not because they've stopped loving you, but because sometimes, without realizing it, we make it harder for them to stay close. Maybe it's waiting for others to reach out instead of nurturing the bond. Maybe it's leaning too heavily without showing appreciation. Maybe it's speaking from bitterness instead of forgiveness, or refusing to grow, adapt, or say those 3 simple words, I was wrong. But here's the most important thing I want you to remember. None of this is set in stone. You are not too old to reconnect. You are not too late to heal. And you are never beyond the reach of meaningful, beautiful relationships if you're willing to take that first step. Start small. 1 phone call, 1 text, 1 moment of listening instead of defending. Choose presence over pride, curiosity over criticism, grace over grudges, because the love you want to feel again is still possible. And if no one has told you this lately, you matter, you're not forgotten, and your story is still being written. If this video spoke to you in any way, please take a second to like it. It tells us that what we're building here matters. And if you know someone who might need these words today, a sibling, a friend, a neighbor, share this video with them. It might be the invitation they've been waiting for. Leave a comment and tell us, what's one small change you're ready to make? Let's support each other gently, like the wise community we are. And if this space feels like home to you, don't forget to subscribe to Golden Wise Elders and tap the bell so you never miss another story, lesson, or quiet moment of hope. We're so glad you're here, and we can't wait to walk this journey with you. Until next time, stay kind, stay open, and stay wonderfully you.